Welcome to our weekly Tuesday webinar. My name is Yomika Bennett, Executive Director of New York Charter School Association. Today marks the 30th week that we've been holding these weekly webinars. It's hard to believe. I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you and to Susie, David, Angeli, Erin, Laurie, and Corey for taking the time every week to be sure schools have the most updated information and best guidance possible. I also want to take a time to thank Anna, Becky, Kayla, John, Ashara, Daniela, all the team at New York Charter School Association and Nexon, because without them, and Mike, sorry Mike, none of this would be possible. So thank you everyone. Let's give ourselves all a round of applause for surviving and making it through so far today and for what's to come. We are all in this together quite definitely, and it's been great to be with all of you during this. So salute. So having thanked everyone, let me introduce our friends who at this point may need no introduction. Today I'm joined by Susie Carrello, Executive Director of the SUNY Charter Schools Institute, David Frank, Executive Director of the Charter Schools Office at NYSED, Erin Cochran, Managing Director, Policy and Operations at New York City Department of Education, Laurie Hazeley, Senior Director, Charter Authorizing and Accountability, and Corey Callahan from the New York City Charter Center. Today we'll follow our usual format. I'll share updates from the association. We'll hear updates from David, Susie, and Laurie, and then take questions from the Q&A before returning to New York City DOE questions. I'm excited to announce that registration for our virtual conference has opened. If you haven't received it, please email info@nycharters.net. Again, info@nycharters.net. We're also going to be holding a competition for the best PPE or social training, chant, or cheer. If you have a cute, creative, or crazy way that you're training staff or students to use PPE or social distance, please submit a video to win bragging rights and other great prizes. And thanks to Susie for this great idea. 2 updates regarding the daily reporting to the DOH portal. First, the daily reporting deadline has moved to 4 p.m. every day. Again, that deadline has moved to 4 p.m. every day. Second, the need to validate cases with your local Department of Health has changed. Basically, if you didn't hear of a confirmed case from your local Department of Health and you believe that you have a positive case, reach out to them and they have the ability to confirm that a case was diagnosed. Those are our updates. Susie, David, and Laurie, would love to hear from each of you if you have any updates. And we'll start with you, Susie.
Great, thanks a bunch. Our updates include the fact that the Mighty Institute team is on week 2 of conducting renewal visits this week, and just big rounds of applause to all of the schools, the SUNY schools that are up for renewal this year, that are, in addition to navigating the strange and unusual waters of renewal to begin with, doing it in the middle of a pandemic. And the Institute team is so energized about their interactions with you that we thank you all very much for doing this. We think the long-term payoff, especially this year, of doing as much full renewal as we can possibly do, will reap lots of rewards over the next 5 years for all of us. So just want to thank everyone for that. And continuing to look forward to hearing how everybody that's not up for renewal this year is continuing to kind of surf on the fluidity of providing great instructions for kids in New York. So that's my update.
All right, great, thank you. David, do you have an update?
Sure. Good to see everyone again. Thanks for everyone who's bearing with us as we had to reschedule our BEDS webinar. It's now going to be on October 7th at 4 p.m. So sorry for any confusion. We had to move it. One of the presenters had a conflict they couldn't get out of that was unforeseen. So October 7th at 4 p.m., everything you ever wanted to know about BEDS reporting in the SIRS environment. We also sent an email out to schools on Friday, and SED is releasing the 2018-19 AP and IB testing reports. The email actually said International Bachelorette, but it is Baccalaureate. So I didn't write the email, didn't come from my office, but Certainly you can, for our high schools, that's very important to get these reports. So take a look, it's at data.nisa.gov. We also, thanks for all the schools who submitted instructional model survey data. That was the short survey that we put out, and thanks to SUNY for helping facilitate that for the SUNY authorized schools. I believe that there's a question on instructional models coming up, so I won't give the results of those surveys just yet. I also want to thank all the schools that, because of tragic circumstances, had to close their in-person instruction and go fully remote because of COVID cases. And those schools, we see, are putting, as you should, reporting to SED through our school closure report in SED monitoring when that occurs. Similarly, when your schools reopen, you go back into SED monitoring and let the state know that your school is now open. So thank you for everyone who's doing that. And that was a memo that went out to the field on September 9th. And it's up on our website if anyone has any questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Laurie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have any new announcements, just that I look forward to seeing renewal applications from those DOE authorized schools going through renewal. They're due tomorrow, so looking forward to seeing those. And this, that we are continuing to reach out to schools to talk about your reopening plans, but that's it. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. So we do have one question. David, you must have some kind of ESP or special information you're checking on our systems. I'd like to know what SED is up to besides not checking their spelling. Kidding. One question that we have, we've heard from schools in a variety of ways, is that they're interested in a general overview of what schools are doing. Can you each speak to your portfolio of schools in the sense of whether they are in-person, hybrid, or fully remote, and what some of the common parameters are that you've seen? David, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'll first speak to the state as a whole. And so for schools across New York State, the majority of schools, actually 64%, are engaged in hybrid instruction. 19.2% are only providing in-person instruction, and 16.8% are only providing remote instruction. So almost a little more than 2/3 of the schools are providing hybrid instruction, and we see that that's the #1 modality, and that's for schools across the state. For our portfolio, we see a larger number of hybrid and remote options and fewer in-person only options. So we only have a handful of schools that are only doing in-person. The danger of doing in-person, of course, is that you need to invest in a remote program because you might have to close due to unforeseen circumstances. As I mentioned before, if there are COVID cases in your school, you might need to go to a remote model. And so if you are fully in person, which you certainly can be, you still need to have a robust remote plan in order to plan for any unforeseen eventualities. So I hope those high-level numbers are helpful to you. Like I said, 64% of schools statewide are hybrid, 19.2% in person, and 16.8% are remote only.
And at the risk of getting in between the Susie and Laurie also sharing updates from their portfolio of schools, I would just say if you're a school that you feel like has that remote content, so sort of on deck and buttoned up, that you'd be willing to share it with other schools who might need the contingency that David just named, let us know. We're happy to help facilitate.
The one thing I would add is we also, certainly we want schools to share effective practices and not reinvent the wheel. But we want to make sure that schools are, even if you're providing remote instruction, are still adhering to the mission and key design elements of your charter. And so a dual language school, for example, just couldn't take a remote instructional model off the shelf from a school that's you know, maybe has an environmental focus and no bilingual model. So it's make sure that you're sharing those effective practices, but making the programs your own as well.
Great, thank you. Hi, Susie. Do you want to answer that question as well?
Sure, happy to. So we had the opportunity to kind of break ours down. The numbers are in the same range, but similar. Outside of the 5 boroughs and Long Island, we've got about 32% of our schools that are, as of September 30th, fully remote, and about 60% of our schools that are hybrid. Now, you know, these numbers are fluid. I've heard from a couple of folks in the last week where there has been a COVID case, and so there has been some shifting in those numbers. Similarly, also kind of outside of New York City or the 5 boroughs, there's about 8% of our schools that are fully in person or fully remote by parent choice. And I think the fully in person encompasses schools that were able to make superhuman efforts to make sure that kids had a good place to go every day while parents or family members are working. In New York City and on Long Island, about 57% of the schools are full-time remote right now, with about 43% of the schools planning on delivering some sort of hybrid instruction. Again, a little bit of shift in that. I will kind of say from the data, again, from some early renewal visits that we've conducted, it's been really great to see the enthusiasm. We understand even more now the loads of kind of digital tools that teachers have learned to become pretty adept with and are keeping a list of that. In fact, you know, it is kind of amazing to be able to watch just how the teachers are engaging children. Some of you have heard me talk over the years about my lovely mother, Phyllis, who was quite the character, and she had quite the word for watching television, sitting and kind of being a vegetable and watching television, which was not very allowed in my house. And it's been fun to understand just how much we have flipped that dynamic in technology just in my lifetime. The team that's been able to observe has been able to see things from a teacher perspective, you know, kind of a shadow teacher being a co-teacher in lessons, and some of those practices we are gathering and intend to push out in some best practice documents. Probably ask many of you to join us, you know, once renewal season is done, so that we can talk about what we've learned. I think the team has also been able to experience what it is to be a student and see what it is to be submitting things. And then on the teacher side of things, see all of the data from a number of the tools that is flowing in, which is amazing. And the other piece I just wanted to underscore that we are seriously impressed by was the ability for so many of you to take curriculum and completely transform it for delivery in a cyber universe. And we are learning more and more about your great work at doing that, and we'll be gathering information about that, asking many of you to share. Hopefully in the fall. I'm sure the association and the center and everyone is looking to provide opportunities to share those best practices. So been extraordinary to see how much you've been able to do. Thank you again, by the way. Let me just underscore that as things emerge, that we understand it's fluid. Everyone has done such a fabulous job of reaching out to us, just giving us an update, CCing us if you're updating staff or parents about any changes in schedule or program. Please keep doing that. It allows us to know what you're doing without having to bother you too much. And we really, really do appreciate it. So keep going. Great work.
Great, thank you very much, Susie. Laurie, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So So from the DOE's cohort of schools, we have 2 schools, which is less than 1%, which are doing either fully in-person or fully remote, where they had the capacity in their building and a number of families that made it work, where they could give students 5 days of instruction a week. I have 2 schools that are fully remote through January. And I have the balance of the cohort. Another group of 6 that are remote and are assessing each month. And I have an example from a school of a really great dashboard that they're using to assess each month. Then another huge percentage of the cohort, 73%, are starting or have started hybrid September and October. But this is, of course, without those planning for October, that is changing daily, and we'll echo what Susie said. Thank you for keeping me abreast of those changes. And then just some interesting trends that I've seen, 2 interesting models that I've seen. I have several schools where the instruction is primarily being delivered through a device, right? And so the teacher can be anywhere. And for the students that are on site, they are still learning through the device, but are getting additional support from an adult that is on site. I have a school that allowed a huge percentage of their teachers to remain remote and hired teachers' aides to be on site to give additional support for the students in classrooms that are learning through their device, and others where teachers are essentially live broadcasting from their classroom. So they're reaching the students there in the classroom in front of them, as well as students that are remote. And that, as well as a huge mix of in between those 2 models as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we're going to be very excited to have schools share those best practices. I think schools, I'm sure everyone on this call is very interested in that. I see there's a question already in the chat about sharing that great dashboard. We will be providing opportunities for schools to share those best practices and look forward to being able to share out a lot of information and collect more. Thank you. Okay, Anna, I'm going to turn it over to you for questions in the Q&A.
Great. I am going to start with one that I'm actually going to address to everyone, including Yomika, because she's been in regular contact with folks at DOH about the DOH reporting platform. So Ashley asks, in the event that there's a confirmed case at our school, we'll report it via the DOH survey. Yes, the answer in my mind is yes. I'm going to check that with everyone. And also communicate to the New York City Situation Room. Yes. And communicating with staff via email and text. Are we required to post this update to our website? So David, Susie, Laurie, Yomika, are any of you aware that there of a requirement that if a school confirms a case that they are required to post it on their website?
I will take that first. I'm not aware of any requirement to post on the website. You certainly need to go to the I'll say the governmental sites, the DOH site, and then New York City, certainly New York City Situation Room should post there. But I know of no requirement to post it independently on your site. So I'll say no.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Same.
Awesome. Unanimous. Terrific. Well, I'm going to turn to some questions in the chat, and there is a little bit of a chain around some questions following up on some renewal requirements that folks mentioned. So if I could, I think maybe the easiest way to address these is just, could each of you say, if you are authorized by my organization, the next thing you should be planning to submit to me is blank on blank day. How about that? For clarity's sake.
I'll start because I think I was the one that created some potential confusion. So unless Andrew Kyle or Jeff Wasbus on the Institute team have reached out to you to make a different due date, because we gave flexibility for a variety of reasons to schools for due dates on documents for renewal. There is nothing officially due tomorrow to the Institute if you are up for renewal.
If your Board of Regents authorized, the next thing on your calendar should be a check-in with us on Monday, October 5th at 4 p.m. We're having another one of our webinars where you can ask questions and we can share our thoughts on the process. And then your next deliverable to us is your Benchmark 1 narrative that's due to us on Wednesday, October 14th. So those are the two next deliverables, and you should be hearing from your liaison to schedule your renewal visits if that hasn't happened already.
And
Laurie,
if
any
you are,
upcoming deliverables here?
yeah, sorry about that. I'm sure I added to some of the confusion as well. If you are a DOE authorized school going through the renewal process, your renewal applications are due October 1st. And for all DOE authorized charter schools, your first batch of reporting requirements are due November 2nd.
Nothing like a good list of deadlines. So thank you all. Last question in the Q&A before I turn it over to New York City, our friends in New York City, is, and I think this is for sort of us and for David. So I'll say, unfortunately, we don't have any updates on this, but updates on how to join data agreements for G Suite in light of the October 1st deadline for 2D privacy law. David, do you have any updates on that?
I would just repeat what I've said before. The level 1 centers, your regional information centers, have said that you need to contact your own regional information center. So if you're in Buffalo, you would talk to Winnie Rick. If you're in New York City, you would talk to the New York City DOE. If you're in Albany, you would talk to NARIC. So you need to speak to your own level 1 regional information center.
This is Becky. I will just echo that is what our contacts at Google for Education told us as well.
A broken clock.
And so then I'll go further and say maybe something we will endeavor to begin those conversations so that those lovely RIC folks are not receiving multiple questions. But if anyone has a great loving relationship with their RIC, let us know, and we're happy to leverage that into benefit for your fellow schools.
If I could just say for New York City real quick, folks
Please.
in New York City, Erin, I know, has been working on this issue. So stay tuned if you're in New York City, like we are trying to work through this so they can get, schools can get access.
Awesome. Last question. I'm sorry, I lied. Actual last question. Annual report question, received a note, but the portal says November 3rd. And David, I think this is one for you. So Donna's question in the Q&A, reminder that the deadline for your application, does that sound right?
Yeah, if you have any annual report questions, you can email Vicki Smith, and it's vickie.smith@niced.gov, and I'll put it in the chat as well. So you can email Vicki with any annual report questions.
Great. All right. Corey and Erin, I will turn it over to you, ladies.
Great. Thanks, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Hi, Erin. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing, Corey?
Good. Hope folks are doing well. Would just quick announcement, we will have someone from the Department of Health on our call this Friday. The invite went out a little while ago. If you didn't get it, I'm going to put it in the chat. But please make sure to register. This is our weekly call with Department of Health contact, as well as the charter school DOE office. So please make sure you join us for those, particularly if you have health questions. I'm going to let Erin, I think you have an announcement, and I saw already you answering a question about this, but the OPT and the bus session time. So I'm going to let you do that, and then we can turn to if there are any questions.
Sure. So I actually have a few announcements. So I'll start with the session times. So yes, we shared last week that the session time application for busing is open. So as many of you know, the current routing that is in place was established using last year's session times. Many schools, district, charter, private, have reached out requesting to update their session times. So that is what is happening now. And that deadline is Friday, and that is a very firm deadline. So please work with your teams to get any updated session times in by this Friday. And then those session times will be what is used to reroute your students during the course of this fall. So we're working on identifying the timeline for that. But it may just take a while because, again, the entire system is likely going to be rerouted. So please get your session times in by this Friday. If you have any questions about some kind of unique situation happening at your school, I know a lot of schools are still trying to figure out their session times because they are not yet back in the building in person. So feel free to reach out to us at Charter Schools at schools. And also please loop in your transportation support liaison.
Erin, can I just ask a clarification real quick on that? So if you're a school that has not yet gone back into your building and you are, let's say you have a date of November 1st, are you wanting the schools to input their best guess at what their session times will be on November 1st? Or do you want them just to let you know that it's still not finalized?
So we need, by end of day on Friday, the bus route, the session times that you want your bus routes to be routed against. So if you don't yet know, you will have to make a decision between now and Friday because that is what the routing will be based on. And it is not yet clear if there will be another window or when another window to update your session times will be. I can tell you it is highly unlikely that it would be before November 1st. So please work with your teams to get your session times in terms of when you actually want those buses running to your building.
Great. And if you don't mind, just because I see a question and I know we're still on this, are schools supposed to assign students that are in hybrid by the day of the week that they're in, or just the fact that the student comes in at all?
The fact that the student comes in at all. Currently, there is no way to indicate in the system which days of the week the student will be riding the bus. The bus is going to ride the same route regardless of which students are riding that bus Monday through Friday. So it is very important that you assign a student to that bus and that you communicate very strongly with that family when they are expected to ride that bus, because that bus will be stopping at that home or at that bus stop every single day of the week, and they will be taking that student to school. They are not turning students away from the bus.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. And related to that, if you do have students that have selected a remote only pathway, please make sure that you have removed them from any bus stops, because otherwise a bus stop will be routed for that student. And then just a couple more quick updates, and then we can turn to some more questions. So we are asking that all charter schools please keep us in close communication about your start dates so that we can be sure that we're sending you a nurse on time and other services. We've had a couple of nurses show up to schools that were closed that we thought were open. So please just keep us in the loop so that we're able to route resources where they need to go on time. And then one quick request, so ahead of Beds Day, so by end of day on the 6th, please ensure that your student addresses are updated in ATS with their permanent address, not if they're doing remote learning for a little bit from North Carolina, with their permanent address, because the address in ATS is the source of record for state reporting and for billing. So please make sure that those addresses are up to date by end of day on the 6th, because that is the data that will be reported in terms of students that are enrolled on the 7th. And then please also confirm that you don't have any errors in your addresses. So there's a screen that we called out in the Charter School Weekly where you can see how many students have unconfirmable or invalidated addresses. And so please try and work to having those all clarified before the 6th. And then just one quick note on the G Suite, we are working on that. Just know that it is going to be a process because, as I'm sure that folks can imagine, our particular agreement with Google is a very particular for our size of our district. And so it will be a bit of a process in order to get to a point where that agreement is able to be kind of pitch-inable. I think those are my updates.
Great. And so as folks, I'm sure, can see, sometimes, you know, we don't have, DOE does not have updates on a lot of the questions that I know folks have. So I do just see one in the chat about whether or not charters are able to participate in the DOE's random mandatory testing program. The person writing, I believe, is in a co-located school, but Erin, I would ask if you could address that update for co-located schools, and then if also private space charters. I know you guys had asked several weeks ago for schools that were interested in being part of this testing program to contact your office.
Yes, and so thank you for all of those schools that have reached out. We are still confirming to the extent that charters will be able to participate in that mandatory or that random testing. So more to come there, but no updates yet.
And then the only other question I see in the chat, I'll either send to Erin or David about, can you confirm when is Beds Day this year? Has it been delayed?
Oh, Beds Day is always the first business day of October. And it hasn't changed. It's still October 7th, the same day as our webinar. And if you didn't get the webinar invite, you can always email me at david.frank@niced.gov. But remember, you don't report anything on Beds Day. Beds Day is just the day that we take account. That you, in the future, later in October, November, December, you'll report information as of Beds Day. So you don't actually have to do anything other than operate a school on October 7th. Beds Day is always first business day of October, first business Wednesday of October.
Thank you, David. And to add there, we would ask that you have your ATS as up to date as possible by the 6th so that count, which you don't have to think about, is accurate.
Good point, Erin.
Great. So not seeing any other questions in the Q&A. Erin, do you have anything else before I turn it back over to Yomika or Anna?
I do not. Thank you, Corey.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Anna or Yomika?
Hey. Ken just asked in the chat, what's the status of open meeting law? And we are expecting an additional extension. I don't believe that it has already been extended. There were a whole bunch of other executive orders that were extended last week, but we will push out an update if there is an extension to those, but they are still, the current and sort of most recent flexibility is still in place. And we, like I said, expect an additional extension because of some other extensions that have been made to other meeting requirements, and we'll make folks aware when that happens. And so I think with that, I'm going to say on behalf of Yomika, who is with us, but not potentially connected right at this moment, to say thanks to everyone, and we'll see you next week for week 31. Thanks, everyone.